On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to discuss how to design a frictionless lifestyle business. Can't wait.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know, learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based financial planning mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. All right, a quick update on what's new with me. Well, I want to talk a little bit on the update about social media. We've really sort of jumped on that bandwagon, and if you're not following us, then definitely check us out on our new Facebook page at facebook.com/FEEFP Mastery. You can find us on Google+, on Twitter, follow our tweets on Twitter. There's a lot going on there, and we've really kind of jumped into this. Now, I don't know which one is going to be the right solution, or maybe they all are, maybe they all aren't. I'm not too sure yet, but we want to make sure that we're kind of everywhere. We're on YouTube, putting together a fee-based financial planning mastery channel on YouTube. So we're going to have a lot of content all around, and I want to encourage everybody to do the kind of the same thing. Start off by being an observer. And that's really the best way of doing it, because what I've found is that, each social media seems to have its own, its own purpose for being there, where people have kind of resonated to it. I see Twitter. Really, Twitter is a fantastic tool, but really to me, it's more of that instant burst of quick, latest and greatest information on a certain topic or certain, company or whatever you're following. You just want to stay in touch with, or you want to keep on top of. That's the best place of getting it. Sort of the latest information. I know, it was probably one of the most popular. I was actually a while back, I think I mentioned this, I was on the highway and there was a big, the traffic was just stopped for whatever reason. Couldn't find out why. Anyways, I went onto Twitter and tweeted my location and sort of wanted to find out what was going on. And sure enough, I was able to get information exactly from somebody who was actually driving by the accident. He told me exactly where it was, the mile marker, everything. And I was able to get that faster through Twitter than any of the other solutions. So, that was one example, but then there's lots of other examples with, at the last there was a NASCAR race where, a lot of the information that was being sent out, the most accurate information actually was coming from eyewitnesses who were tweeting about it. So, stuff like that. It's just the place you seem to want to be if you want to get sort of latest and greatest information or content, sort of microblasts, so to speak. The other area that you can take a look at, I find Google and Facebook. They're interesting, Google Plus and Facebook. Now, Facebook, I really recognize that's definitely the place where you want to connect with your friends. Connecting with friends, connecting with families, staying in touch with your other connections is important. Now, do people necessarily connect with their with companies through that? Well, it depends on the company, I think. So I haven't really figured out if Facebook is the right place for a financial planning firm to be. However, we're going to be there anyways, and we're going to just start to see what type of response we're getting from that. Google Plus, I find really interesting. It's one that I think is going to be an up-and-comer, and it's really gaining traction. Because that to me is where people connect based on their passions. And if you have a passion on a certain topic, irrespective of who you are, it's your passion that's going to bring you together into those circles. And so Google Plus to me seems to be connections for your passions. Facebook seems to be connections for friends and family. And Twitter is basically your connection to a certain company or something that you're following that you want to stay in, that you're interested in, that you just want to be kept up to date on what's going on. So that's where I really see a lot of the way I'm using the social media. LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. I think it's a fantastic tool for staying connected professionally, for really kind of broadening and getting the information out there on what you're doing on a professional basis. And I think there's some really interesting ways there. So definitely go online and link in with me, or circle me in Google Plus, or like me on Facebook or whatever, in order to see what we're doing. Because I think by doing that, you're going to start to glean a little bit of insight as to how we're using it. And, as time goes on, I'm going to be giving more and more insight as to what we're seeing from our different avenues that we're going out there with YouTube and whatnot. So just go check it out. Just, Google the fee-based financial planning mastery, find all of our social networking landing pages, so to speak, and connect with us. And I'd love to hear from you if you want to reach out. I'm basically we'll be monitoring all of them, and I think it's a great tool. And one of them I think is going to start to rise to the top as to where we're finding some success with regards to business promotion and building relationships and whatnot. But who knows? It's too soon to tell which social media is going to be the one to be on. So we're just going to make sure that our marketing plan in that case is to be everywhere, in every social media that's out there, or the main ones anyways. So anyways, check it out. Definitely connect with us on the social media, and I look forward to seeing you on that online. Now let's get to the feature segment.
And now for our feature segment.
How to design a frictionless lifestyle business. I hope I don't ramble on too much on this one, but this topic I love. Have you ever thought about your business this way, with regards to, lifestyle business? Have you ever thought about your life in this way and creating, designing your ideal life? Well, designing your own lifestyle is not only good for the soul, it's good for your community. Look at things this way. When you're not happy, or ask yourself, when are you not happy, right? The answer is when you have the absence of happiness. I know it kind of sounds goofy, but it's true. And the absence of happiness is usually present when something isn't working smoothly. In other words, when things are working smoothly, friction is not present. When things aren't working smoothly, friction is present. So how do you then create happiness? You simply remove the friction. Now, I love the visual of frictionless because I didn't come up with that. I heard it from Dean Jackson and Richard Rossi. They were talking about lifestyle design. And when they used the term frictionless, it really resonated with me. I think it resonated with me so much because deep down, I believe my life is all about finding happiness. Finding happiness in my life, my relationships and my business is so important to me. Really, it made me think about how much control we have over what we do, and what we do needs to be based on our awareness of what we want. Okay, and I'm going to say that again. It made me think about how much control we have over what we do, and what we do needs to be based on our own awareness of what we want. And what we want is a reflection of one thing. What makes us happy? We want to be happy. I mean, bottom line is that's what we want. And anything we do is either going to bring us closer to or further from happiness. Now, how does this all, translate into designing a business and designing a lifestyle and all that? Well, happiness, this is our purpose in life and in business, okay? So whenever anybody says, I'm trying to find my purpose, well, I'm just going to tell you very quickly, very easily, your purpose in life is to be happy. Now, it may sound selfish at first, but that's the point. It's a selfish, but not selfish in a bad way, okay? You've got to understand that, I think we all have, we've all come across people who are selfish in a good way. Look at it this way. One of the few lessons you can take from the airline industry is, when they sit at the beginning of the flight and they talk to you about all the safety procedures, and everybody knows what they are, but what's the one thing they always say? In an emergency, if the oxygen masks drop down, put yours on first, then put your kid's mask on. Okay. So you've got to understand that this is being said for a reason. This makes total sense to me, because if you can't help yourself, how do you ever expect to help others? Right. And that's an important point, because, people who are only out there to help others, I think deep down there's a void, because they're not innately happy. Now, they're maybe doing it for all the right reasons, but at the end of the day, if you're not happy, you don't have as much to give to your society and to your community. The people who focus on their happiness first are always available to help others. These are the people we love being around, because we have so much to give back because they are so happy. Or we don't have so much to give. They have so much to give back because they're so happy. And it's that energy that's created from that happiness, which is so powerful. I know too many people who are wealthy as all get out, but miserable. And when I look at these people, I ask myself, what's the point in that? What's the point in having so much wealth, but really not being that happy? So we as human beings can make choices. And our first choice in life is to follow our purpose, which is simply to be happy. This philosophy, however, is not shared by everyone. And that's fine. But if you're not in this camp, you may want to push the off button for this episode, because it's not going to resonate with you. Now, what we do to that end can be very noble and provide others with a ton of value. So, your purpose to be happy doesn't need to fall on, taking advantage of other people or whatever. It can be a very noble purpose. And I think it needs to be a noble purpose, and it needs to be something we can do, we focus on, that gives us so much joy. And as a result, people get so much joy in working with us on whatever that noble purpose is. For me, it happens to be, in the financial planning arena. I love financial planning. I love the benefit, the positive nature and the positive effects that come from it. And I just love it so much. So, our goal is to have a noble purpose and to be happy doing it. Okay. So let's look at what you can do in your business now to remove some of the friction, because this whole concept of frictionless is important. And, some of what we're going to talk about, you may listen to it, go, what is he talking about? These are such minor little things. But I tell you, add up all the little things and they're going to translate into a big difference. So first of all, this is the first step into this whole process, is you need to become aware of the friction, okay? Now, don't take this step lightly. It's very difficult to see the friction in your business, because you've had, probably years, you've learned to accommodate and to sort of accept a lot of the little friction points as a result. And you kind of become numb to it. So, it's difficult to look at your business and find those friction points, and to become sort of the first eyes in your business, and your eyes as from the standpoint of a prospective client or a client, because you want to, great businesses take a look at things from their client's eyes and ask the question, what is it that they're going through that potentially is a point of friction for them to do business with us? And if you can eliminate those frictions, I tell you, people will simply keep coming back, and they will pay you more and more and more. They will see so much value in the sense that you're making their life so much better, because it's these small frictions in many cases that if you can get rid of those frictions for these people, they will love you for it. So let's take a look at some of the most common business friction points that I've come up with. And this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I'm going to touch on some of them, and I'm going to talk about some solutions. And, I'm really interested to hear what others have to say about this, and you may, while you're listening to this, thoughts may come into your mind. I want you to write that down, or maybe go to the show notes and put your comments in the show notes as to what some of the small frictions or big frictions are that you've come across in your business. Now, one of the frictions that I know for a fact that people have had that they keep running into at the beginning of their career anyways, is the whole friction of keeping everything in your head. It's a stressful, it's sort of a weight that is put on your shoulders. And it's something that I think people really need to put a lot of attention on, because you can't keep everything in your head. In this business, trying to keep everything in your head and trying to do everything yourself just simply doesn't work. So, we've put in place a lot of solutions, things like Salesforce.com, Evernote. Evernote is a great tool. Now, I'm not totally a power user of Evernote, but I do recognize its power in that, you can just start throwing a lot of your notes and, electronic information. It doesn't have to be electronic. You can take pictures of your receipts and all that sort of stuff, but you can put all this stuff in Evernote and recall it very, very easily. Things like Google Apps is another great one, taking advantage of the online services that are available there. Basecamp, we talked about that in a previous episode, taking advantage of how to keep things organized, because, keeping everything in your head is very, very difficult, and you fill up very quickly. And using things like Google Calendar. So, this is one of the bigger frictions that people are always trying to get to. And we're going to start big, and we're going to touch on some small ones as well. But definitely try to make sure that you've got solutions in place that you can rely on to allow you to get things out of your head. The next one would be not knowing when the right time is to hire support staff. This was a big one for me, because when I was in business, I always, heard people talk about, oh, you need to hire people, you need to hire support. And what I found was that I thought, oh my gosh, I just never know when the right time is, because, how do you do it in such a way that you can, do it without it financially crippling you? Because honestly, the most challenging part of hiring somebody is the perception of whether or not that person is going to give you the time you need to sort of add more revenue to be able to pay not only for their salary, but also for the time and effort that goes into getting them up to speed. So, the exercise we're going through right now of becoming aware of the friction in your business, that's actually going to provide you with some clear insights as to what you need to do and when you need to hire. So, taking a look at your business and saying, okay, what is it about this business that, I'm just not getting to, that needs to get done? What is it about this business that is just causing me some grief? And now you want to say, well, then maybe there's somebody else who actually really enjoys this part of the business. I know for me, there were things I just can't stand doing, or keeping track of all the paperwork and keeping track of paper and filing and all that sort of stuff. But you know what? There are other people who are really good at that, and they enjoy the organizing aspects that come from it. And so that friction for me, I just got that completely removed by hiring people in order to and delegating that aspect of things. So, take a look at your business and ask yourself, what are the friction points that I'm experiencing when I show up in the morning, when I walk in the morning? Is it a friction point of not having cream in the fridge and thinking, oh, geez, I got to go get cream for my meeting so they can have it in their coffee, or not having it, or running out of coffee, something like that. And just start to use those friction points as being aware of them, so that you can then start to delegate those to people who actually can just work them into their own daily routine. And if you don't have anybody, then you want to build up a lot of these friction points, write them down, and then say, okay, well, then this is going to be a starting list of some of the tasks that I want this person to do, and bring them in and, have them start on that, and then just get used to flexing that delegation muscle. Now, staff training is another one. This is the third one. Training staff is just, it can be a friction point, because you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to go through the process. And remember, there's a friction point in the whole process of going through the hiring process and trying to find somebody and sending out resumes and reviewing the resumes and having the interviews and all that sort of stuff. That in itself has a ton of friction to it, which is one of the reasons why the recruiting agencies have been created, because they are there to take a lot of that friction away from people. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you need to go to a recruiting agency to hire your staff, but you can see how people have built businesses around eliminating or reducing friction. Now, the training staff part is difficult, because so many times I've seen people, they hire somebody, they bring them in, and then they say, okay, you now need to do things. And the staff member's like, well, what do I do? And there's this point of conflict now. Now you've got to say, well, here, this is what you do. This is how you do it. I'm going to walk you through it. And basically now what you're doing is you're doing not only your job, but now you're doing their job, and now you're training them how to do their job. All of a sudden, you have so little time to do your job that this point of friction increases, and you get frustrated going forward. So what are the possible solutions? Well, in the staff training side, I've had a tremendous amount of success through capturing what I do through online screen capture tools, things like ScreenFlow or Camtasia. This has been a huge training aid, because all it requires me to do is to sit down and do the task once, but then I record it. So then when I have all these recordings put aside in Salesforce, there's a library section. So we put it all in there, and all you do in Salesforce, they have like not Google, but it's like a search engine or a search bar there that you go in. And if you have any question about how to do something, whether it be how to produce a mailing, how to change an address, how to, all these, whatever it happens to be, chances are we have a training video for it. And if we don't have a training video, then I want to get training videos for it. So part of what we do is we ask our staff to say, listen, if there's something you're doing on a regular basis, then what I want you to do is I want you to itemize and outline the exact steps that you go through. And then we'll create a training video on how to do that step. So maybe it's how to put together I know one that we just outlined the steps for that we're going to be recording soon, which is how to do the online ordering of an unaddressed ad mail campaign for, marketing of some of our direct response or direct mail pieces. So I know that there's, I created one before, now the system's changed, so we're gonna have to re-record it. But the point is that I can then say to somebody, okay, if you don't know how to do this, if you don't know how to post maybe something to our website or whatever, just go to this video and watch the video, because that video will allow you to follow the exact steps, and not only through words, but you'll actually see somebody doing it online, and the screen will look very familiar to what it is that you're doing. So the whole friction part of training has actually been reduced by simply identifying what are the things I need somebody else to do. Then when it comes to putting that together, you just simply say, well, I'm going to do it once, and I'm going to then record myself doing it, and I'm going to talk the process through. And you put that video together. I mean, they're not very fancily produced videos, but they are videos that people can rely on. And if there's something that's changed along the way, it doesn't take that long to make a change to it. So that's something for sure. When it comes to training staff, outline the tasks that you want your staff members to do, and then ask yourself, okay, well, then what I'm going to do is, if I have to train somebody, or if I have to, put it together myself, I'm going to actually do it, and I'm going to record how to do it so that that person has something to turn to. And, in some cases, you can actually sit while you're training somebody and say, okay, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to train you, but we're going to do this once, and we're going to record it along the way. And so by doing that, you're going to have this resource you can always go back to help you work through those steps. So training, for sure, definitely take advantage of ScreenFlow or Camtasia, and you'll find some tremendous value in that. Next one, meeting preparation. Oh my gosh, this one is one of the big drains on a resource of an advisor, plain and simple. When you've got to prepare for all your meetings, when you've got to do all the post-meeting work, and we'll get to that one, but if you've got to prepare for each meeting, there's a lot that goes into the preparation. However, what you'll find is that chances are the preparation you do is similar for each client. Now, the details may be different, but the process you go through is exactly the same. So again, the way of removing the friction in meeting preparation is simply to record how you do what you do, and then assign each step to be done by someone else. Record each step in ScreenFlow or Camtasia, and then the prep process is the same, but the details are, as I say, the details are going to be different. So you can then hire somebody to simply to go through and say, look, take a look at my calendar, and leading up to those meetings, I need to make sure that you've prepared for each meeting, and here is how you prepare. So if you have different types of meetings, whether they be full year reviews or mid-year reviews or insurance reviews or whatever that happens to be, then ask yourself, what's the agenda for that meeting? And what are the pieces of content that I need to have put together? And then record yourself preparing that content so that somebody can say, okay, if this meeting coming up is going to be a mid-year review, then here's what gets looked at a mid-year review. Now, it forces you to then go back to your financial planning process to say, what are we going to look at and when throughout the year? And then you can start to build your business around this business model format that I talk about, which is allowing you to have a consistent experience for every client. So when they come in for a mid-year review, they kind of know, if they've been there for a few of them, they know what's going to be talked about. If they're coming in for a full year review, they know what's going to be talked about. When it comes to your financial planning process, whether it be, initially developing a financial plan or whatnot, the plan presentation part 1 is going to be the same for every single meeting. And so, the process is the same. Now, obviously the details are different, and that's where the uniqueness comes in, and each client gets a very, customized, tailored result, but the process for preparing that is all the same. So the next one, low cost, effective marketing. This one is huge because there's a lot of friction that goes into putting together a marketing campaign and trying to figure out, well, what do I do? How do I do it? How do I execute it? How do I see if it was cost effective? And honestly, we've talked about marketing in general in previous episodes, and honestly, I just don't like the traditional marketing. I don't like it. I think it's a very expensive way of going. I think it's not very easy to track whether or not it was successful or not. low cost effective marketing or the direct response marketing makes a huge difference. Now, so the solution to getting rid of the frustration with marketing is, instead of taking a look at it, which most marketing firms will say is, go with a shotgun. They don't say go with a shotgun approach, but they kind of take that approach where they say, get your brand out there, get your name out there. I see it. I see it with real estate agents all the time. They market to their neighborhood on billboards, and they have pictures of themselves, and they start saying, come and have such and such team work for you, and all this sort of stuff. And I think, what is that? I mean, how do they even know if that's working? Does somebody say, oh yeah, I saw your mug on the billboard off the highway, and I decided to give you a call? No, they never do that. So they feel that it's sort of brand recognition. Well, honestly, I think you could be a lot better if you just basically said to your marketplace, listen, I'm going to find out who in this neighborhood needs my services. So I'm going to take a rifle approach instead of a shotgun approach. And so I'm going to put a piece of content using education-based marketing. I'm going to put a piece of content out there that is directly asking a question of who's interested in this topic. Then the people who respond, they're the ones that are raising their hands. And then you can put an automation process together, again, to remove the friction of how to manage these marketing programs, automate the whole process so you can nurture those leads. Because if somebody says, listen, I'm calling you, or I'm wanting an information report on education savings plan options for my kids, that they've probably got kids and they're interested in education savings plans. So why not then build a nurturing campaign that you can respond back to them? They, initially go online and request the report. They get the report, and now there's a person who's interested in education programs. So now you can start following it with more great content on the education, and then you can invite them in the email campaigns to reach out and to take advantage of a free special offer that you have for having an initial meeting to go through a review or what it happens to be. So, taking advantage of low cost effective marketing through an education-based direct response marketing style approach is so much better, because you're then able to track, is this effective or not? If I sent out 2,000 flyers and I got 5 responses, okay, of those responses, did anybody become a client? And if they did, okay, take a look. What were the revenues of that client? Take that back and find out, well, how much time went into putting that campaign out there? What were the costs of putting the flyer together? What were the costs of putting the web page together? And what are all the costs that went into that? And you can very quickly see if that made money. If it made money, do it again, and then tweak it. And so there's a real amazing way, because when I say low cost effective marketing, in actual fact, all of your marketing should be free, because if it works, my gosh, you're making money off of this. So, you'll do that all day. If you're going to spend $1,000 to get $5,000, why would you not do that every single day of your life? And so that's where the low cost effective marketing becomes no cost effective marketing, and actually becomes profitable effective marketing, which is not what people most oftentimes experience when it comes to marketing. So definitely take the friction away from your marketing and follow that approach. Now, meeting follow-up. So what happens after the meeting? So you've had your meetings, everything's great, and now, it's that classic, you got to get all the stuff that you promised that you were going to do, you now got to have it done. Well, put a process in place to actually have that done for you. So for example, in Salesforce, we have what's called triggers, and these triggers are all triggered off of people going through different stages of their meetings. So if they have a meeting where they have, meeting 1, 2, or 3, whatever, and I know that certain tasks have to happen after certain meetings, well, then I just put the triggers in place. And so when that meeting happens and you say, okay, the meeting has now made it through this stage, all of a sudden, and a trigger gets pulled, and tasks get put on your staff's to-do list, and then they just simply get the to-dos done, and everything works wonderfully. The other thing is that I created was a meeting control sheet. There was always this big issue that I had when it came to meeting follow-up, where I would sit in a meeting and I'd love the meetings and I'd have wonderful conversations and I'd make all these promises of things I was going to do, and then I'd come out of the meeting and look at my list and go, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't like all the follow-up. Sometimes it's follow-up that's just mind-numbing, and sometimes it's important, but it just, that's not my unique ability. That's not my what I thrive at doing. So I like I put together a process that I said, how do I communicate what needs to be done to my staff? Well, I put together what's called a meeting control sheet. And that's just simply a sheet that I keep track of where I just simply write down all the things that I say I'm going to do, or it's things that the client says they're going to do. And so I can easily follow up with them and send them an email, or have an email sent to them saying, just a summary of our meeting. Here's the items we said we were going to do. Here are the items you said you were going to do. And oftentimes that meeting we send out attached to that email the items that we were going to do. And so it's pretty well done. And it happens very, very, very efficiently. And then, this process, the meeting follow-up, does require a certain level of delegation. And I've just seen too many entrepreneurs, too many business owners suck at delegating. And because what they do is they delegate, and then they always start looking over the shoulder, going, oh, are you doing it? Are you doing it right? Are you doing it the way I would do it? You need to delegate the responsibility, not the control. You need to be able to maintain control of your business, but you need to delegate responsibility. When it comes to delegating, people really embrace responsibility when they get it. And when they see that you're actually delegating it, and they're going to live and die, and there's going to be ramifications if they don't get their work done. But then when they do get it done, they see the rewards and the benefit that comes from that. They appreciate you for delegating the responsibility. Now, ultimately, it's your head if a certain task doesn't get done. So that's where you have to maintain control standards on making sure the delegations are being completed and being able to monitor that. But definitely take another look at your delegation ability and ask yourself: am I delegating properly? Am I delegating for success? Am I delegating to help set everybody up for success? So part of the delegation is through what we talked about before, which are creating how-to videos on how to do certain things, so that when you delegate a task, people know exactly what they need to do and how to do it. Now, business management. This one was a huge turning point for me in my business, because, it's one thing to have a business, it's one thing to run a business, but it's a whole nother thing to manage your business, because managing your business actually takes you away from producing in your business and from generating revenue for your business. However, it is important because you need to monitor your business. So what are some of the frictions? Well, some of the frictions that I always found was, as you get to a certain size, you're not as, you need to keep your finger on the pulse of where the cash is at in your business and cash flow and whatnot, because that can very, very quickly. I remember reading a great book on the evolution of Salesforce.com. And they had a real problem that their pricing structure worked well, but it actually almost bankrupted them, because what they were doing was they were selling services. All their costs and expense was up front, and they weren't getting paid for many months. Kind of sound familiar to our business? Absolutely it does, because when you take on a fee-based client, if you look at investments, oftentimes you're not receiving that revenue until all the way through the year. So your annual revenue isn't front-end loaded like it was when you were dealing with commission-based, where you got all the commission up front. You've got to wait for that revenue to come in. So you run the risk. You could take on so much business and put yourself into bankruptcy because you don't have enough cash flow in order to support that business. If you've got staff and all that sort of stuff, and rent and consumables and all that, the more you bring on, the more costs you incur. You may not get the revenue in time in order to pay those bills. So you've got to be able to manage that. So what I did was I created what I call my dashboards, or business metrics. And I said, what are the most important business metrics that for my business, what's important for me to know? And I said, well, and the one thing I want to know first of all is I want to be able to know very, very quickly my cash position. I need to know how solvent I am. And so what I did was I said, okay, well, solvency, let's take a look at that. If you want to know how solvent you are, you say, okay, well, if I've got, say, $50,000 or $100,000 sitting in my account, okay, if I have that in my account, then why do I want to know that? Why? Well, that makes me feel good that I've got cash that I can turn to if for any reason there's a delay in cash coming in. So then the question is, well, what would make me feel comfortable? Well, I looked at it and said, well, I would be comfortable if I knew I had at least 2 months worth of expenses that I just can't get away from, those fixed expenses. If I had 2 months worth of expenses sitting in an account, then I know that I've got 2 months that I could stay in business should no revenue come in. So that made me feel comfortable. Now your number may be different. It may be 3 months. It may be 1 month, whatever it is. But ask yourself, what would make me feel comfortable? So then what I did was I put a solution in place, and this was to reduce the friction of having to get that information, because it's one thing to know what you want to get, but it's another thing to get it. So I asked the question to myself, I said, well, and who has that information readily available to them? And I thought, okay, my bookkeeper does. So what I did was I created in our Salesforce, I created a dashboard that has what I call my solvency metrics. And it basically, what they do is it's just a quick little formula. It's a very simple formula. You take your cash on hand and you divide it by your future 60 days payable. So what you do, you divide it by your future 60 days payable, and you just simply divide that number together. So let's say if you've got $100,000 on hand, and your business costs $50,000 a month to run, then that means you have a solvency factor of 2. You've got 2 times the future expenses in cash sitting in your business. Okay, so you've got 2 months that you can actually operate. Well, if that's a comfortable number for you, then you want to say, okay, there's my 2. So now set the bands around that. So if you know that, okay, I'm uncomfortable when I only have 1 month, then you can then have an alarm or some sort of a trigger or some sort of an alert get triggered if your factor goes below 1. If it goes from 1 to 2, then you're healthy. But if it goes beyond, say, 2.5, which means you've got a lot of excess cash, anything above 2.5, that just tells you, you know what, you're too flush with cash. You need to get some of that cash either working for you or in some way, doing something more than just sitting in cash. So put together that process. Well, I just simply have my bookkeeper every week when she does the updating of our week stuff. She just quickly runs that calculation, puts it into a spreadsheet for me. Boom, I've got the information at my fingertips. So I can very quickly look at my solvency analysis, take a look at it. It's actually, in my case, it's color coded. And as long as the color is the color that I want, I know that there's no issues. Something else you may want to look at is, from a business metrics standpoint, is take a look at your accounting. All right. So I looked at profit accounting first. And so simply what that says to me is I'm in business for the first, really I've got in business. I created this business because I wanted to make a life for myself. I wanted to become profitable. I wanted to have a certain level of cash that I could then use for my lifestyle, for helping design my lifestyle. So I need to make sure that as a business owner, profits are coming to me. So I kind of flip things around, and I learned this little trick from Mike Michalowicz of the Pumpkin Plan. And if you haven't read his book, I strongly recommend you do. But there's a profit accounting, and profit accounting is simply taking your profits first. Right? You as a business owner, you have a right to profits. It's not what's left, it's your profits at the beginning. But by doing so, it allows you to see with almost laser focus where your business is challenged. Because if you, let's say you have, $100,000 to keep the number simple coming in, and you want to have a 20% profit. Well, what I do is I say, take 20% right off the top, move it into your profit account. Then take off that your salary. So if you're the owner and it costs you, $20,000 for the month, then you take that number right off the top. So now $40,000 has come right off of that 100. You now have $60,000 left to run your business. So then take off that 60, your fixed expenses, and are you still profitable after your fixed expenses? If you're not, guess what? Your problem isn't in your variable expenses. Your problem is in your fixed expenses. Maybe you've got too much overhead. But if you are profitable after your fixed expenses, then take a look at, are you profitable after your variable expenses? And if you're not, well, then okay, the problem isn't in my fixed expenses. The problem is in my variable expenses. So you can do a deep dive and be able to manage your business so much quicker by doing that. And then if you've got profits left over at the end of that, great. And that's just going to simply build your cash reserve. And you're going to start to see that come up in your solvency analysis, because then if your cash is building too much, then you've got some decisions to make there. But if you're, so taking the profit accounting and just taking traditional accounting and turning it kind of on its head is important, because if you start seeing that every quarter you can make a profit distribution to yourself as the business owner because you've been allocating, kind of skimming that off to the side, then you're running a profitable business, and you can start to take advantage and reap some of the rewards from that business along the way. And if the profits are, if you're running into some issues and you're starting to dip into some of that cash reserve, because then you're going to be able to see some trends start to appear. So it's just a much better way of managing your business. And it happens very, very quickly because you can put these types of tools together to allow you to just very quickly at the push of a button see where am I at. And so that's what you want to do when it comes to your business management. Really, all you want to do is the way of reducing the friction is simply create a dashboard of key metrics that you want to follow, and then have a solution in place for somebody else to update that information. And if you don't have somebody else, then just block off a certain time every month in order to do that. Another point of friction is canceled meetings due to bad weather. Oh, we came across this one year, many years ago, where we had a very, very busy day planned, and there were a lot of meetings booked. And so got up in the morning. It was a horrible, horrible snowstorm. So I got up extra early. I dragged my butt into the office and sort of got in there early, and I knew it was going to take a lot longer. It took me almost like 2 hours when in most cases it would take 35 minutes to get into the office. Was able to get into the office, and I sat there, and every single one of my meetings canceled that day. And they all said, oh, the weather's too bad. I'm not comfortable driving in that weather. I risked my life and limb to get there, and they didn't. And, a lot of them felt bad. They said, oh my gosh, you're in the office. I didn't think you were going to be in. I can't make it. It's just not working out, whatever. So that was a point of friction for me. So what did I do? I looked at that, and I said to my assistant, I said, listen, the next time we have a situation like this, why don't you offer to a client that if they can't make it in, offer them a solution, offer them an alternative, which is having an online meeting. So we went ahead and did that. And believe me, it happens on a fairly regular basis where you're going to have days come up where you're going to have bad weather and people aren't going to be able to come in, or they're just going to have to cancel for whatever reason because maybe they're not able to get out of their office or their kid's sick or something like that. Well, we have a policy that says whenever anybody calls to have to reschedule a meeting, we offer them to turn that meeting into an online meeting. So a lot of people started doing that, and they were they started doing it. Well, all of a sudden we'd have the online meeting, and they loved it. They thought, well, wow, that's pretty impressive the way we were able to do everything on that online meeting. So we said, great, that worked well. Well, here's what started happening after that. Now, people, when we call them to book our review meetings, they're asking for online meetings because they recognize that they're able to be much more efficient on their end. We're able to bring in people from, husbands and wives who are at different work locations or at home, ones at work, whatever. We can bring everybody in together, and everybody has a great meeting. Now, it doesn't work very well for initial meetings because that's where you want to sort of get to know somebody and you want to be able to look them in the whites of their eyes. But the point is that it's a solution that we found worked very well to reduce the friction of canceled meetings and the frustration that goes along with that. Being able to afford staff. This one is a big one. And, I think if you start putting in place some of the items that we just talked about, you are going to start to be able to manage your business better and to know when it's right time to hire somebody. But being able to afford the staff, first of all, you need to see the dollars that are going into hiring a staff member not as an expense, but as an investment. And you can start to see that once you start knowing when the right time is. We talked about it before. When's the right time to hire somebody? Well, take a look at using this frustration awareness, because when you see that there's a lot of frustration coming in for a certain thing, that may be a solution for when the right time to hire somebody is. But if you know that you could do more of a higher revenue generating activity by hiring somebody to do something else, well, now you can start to see that by investing in that person, you're going to have things you're going to get a return on that investment. So see it as an investment. You never ever want to make in a business a cash outflow that isn't going to yield you some sort of a return. Because otherwise it's a poor investment decision. It's a poor business decision. So focus on when you hire somebody, really say, I'm going to hire this person, but I need to see a return on this investment. What do you expect that return on investment to be? And then put solutions in place so you can start to see how you're going to get that. If you're going to hire somebody to take, meeting prep off your shoulders, then that means you should be able to handle more meetings in a day because you have less meeting prep. So therefore you're going to get more people through your office. You're going to simply meeting clients generates revenue, and that's just going to work out well for you. So identify the areas of friction. And, as I said, when it comes to hiring, hire the management of those items out. So whenever there's an area, whether it be somebody needs to get the coffee and cream for the office, maybe the area of friction is putting yourself on an automatic a delivery program for your coffee and whatnot. So there's always a solution. You just need to be aware of where the friction is, and then find the solutions once you're aware of what the problem is. So booking review meetings. This one was for me again a frustration because I know that if it were left to me to book my review meetings, number one, I wouldn't book as many. Number two, I probably would not book them very efficiently. So I simply hired that to my staff member and I said, listen, I need you to book all my meetings for me. You're going to handle my schedule. Everybody who's going to book is going to come through you. Because, oftentimes booking a meeting isn't just booking with one person, it's booking with 2 or 3 people because you've got to coordinate all of this. And so there's a lot of time goes into that. So booking review meetings, I simply hire that out. Well, guess what? Now the meetings get booked. And when we tell clients that, listen, we're going to contact you in, a couple times a year and we're going to go through review meetings, well, guess what? Those meetings get booked, those calls get made, and it's probably something I wouldn't necessarily do myself because if I started booking too many meetings and I see, oh my gosh, I'm going to get tired with all those meetings, so I'm going to start slowing down. Whereas when my assistant does it, basically those meetings are there, and by putting the meeting prep solutions in place, now we know that we can handle that capacity. So that's definitely something to consider. The other one, compliance is another one. And so looking at, compliance is always a challenging one, where you've got, just the things you've got to do. So put solutions in place where you can just make it simple and, routinized, or routinized or whatever the term is. But, so if you want to, one of the things that we did, we found that constantly rebalancing our own portfolios was simply making our know your client forms come off. They were offside. And so we'd have to get clients to sign new forms all the time in order to make an adjustment. And I just got so frustrated with that because it was very, I didn't see the benefit other than making sure that the dealer was, their ass was covered because the file was papered properly. Well, if that changes, or if there's a market event that changes, all of a sudden we were getting triggers that said, oh, the client's account is offside, go back in, rebalance it. And so we either had to rebalance, which could be at the wrong time, or we had to get the clients to sign off on a new Know Your Client form and a new risk profile, which meant there was a conversation around that. And, it wasn't a very efficient use of time. So we simply found solutions where we could offload the investment reallocations and the rebalancing to discretionary management. And that was a huge time saver for us. And it makes more sense because now we don't need to get clients' permission to make those adjustments, which is actually better for the client. Because what happens if we need to make an adjustment and the client happens to be on vacation? Or, I've said to clients in the past, I said, listen, you don't want to be on a situation where it's up to the advisor to contact you, because if they're making an adjustment in a portfolio, chances are they're making it for every one of their clients. Well, time is of the essence with those. So let me ask you a question. Who do you think the advisor is going to call first? Their smallest client or their largest client? Right. They're going to call the largest client, which means if you're not there, or if your phone call happens to be missed, or if you're putting up resistance and saying, oh, wait, I want to talk more about this. You know what? They're probably not going to call you at the top first anymore because they're going to gravitate simply to calling the people that just follow their advice. I think that's a disservice because when a client is hiring you to manage their portfolio, you need to manage their portfolio. They aren't the ones that need to sign off on it. They're hiring you to do that. How are they supposed to know? That's why they're hiring you in the first place. So compliance was a real problem there. So we just simply reduced that friction by moving to discretionary type management, and that simply allowed the investment adjustments to be made on the client's behalf in the best interest of the client, and it was done in a very efficient way. Specializing without specializing. There's a lot of moving parts in the financial planning world, and you can't do it all. And so one of the frictions is, well, if I don't have a solution in place, or if something needs to be addressed and I don't do it, well, that client's going to go somewhere else and risk that client being pulled away to somebody else who can implement whatever it is they needed to do. So what do? You specialize without specializing. Align yourself with other specialists in certain areas, whether it be living benefits, whether it be investments, whatever. Align yourself with them and say, listen, whenever I come across a need that needs to be addressed, you're going to be the one going out and doing it. And so we're going to, if there's compensation, you basically split the case. And make sure that they're aware of that. So the specializing without specializing is a good one, because you don't have to be the specialist. You, as a fee-based financial planner, your job is to recognize the need and then to turn to those specialists in order to implement the need properly. Since we've been doing that, our solutions, the results and the value that clients receive have gone through the roof, because now you're working with a team of specialists, not one generalist, and that makes a huge difference. So, those are just some of the topics, some of the things that I've talked about when it comes to, removing the friction in your business. And, it doesn't always have to be removing the friction. In some cases, it's not, as I say, it's not removal of something. It could be the addition of something. So adding a solution, adding a different piece of software, or simply, removing is another way of doing it as well. Now, what about personally? Well, you'd better pay attention to the friction that is present in your personal life, because if you don't, it's definitely going to affect your business, and not in a good way. So here are some examples of some personal friction points, okay? So again, you want to ask yourself, what is it that can help make you happy? Well, kids scheduling is oftentimes a huge friction. If you've got multiple calendars, multiple kids, multiple parents, you got a lot of scheduling to do, and you've got to coordinate that with business, and it can be a challenging thing. So what we've done is we've just simply embraced Google Calendar, and now everybody in the family has a Google Calendar. My calendar's tied in with my business, so that when an appointment gets made in the business, it gets put on my Google Calendar. An appointment gets made in personally on the Google Calendar, it gets uploaded into the business. And so we've got this two-way communication going on with that. And that just simply means that I'm never going to get screwed up when it comes to scheduling, because I tell you, if you've got kids, anything like my kids, it's a busy, busy time. So removing that friction just allows you to do that. Staying social with your friends, that's oftentimes a challenge. When times get busy, it's hard to stay in connection with your friends. And so removing the friction could be, various things. Could be setting up in advance on the first week of every month, or the beginning of the quarter. Have a meeting with your spouse and just simply say, okay, when do we have weekends? Let's look and plan out our calendar. And so often people don't plan their calendar. As a student of the strategic coach, we do this all the time. Every quarter we get back together and I plan out my calendar. At the beginning of each year, I do sort of a 1 year goal setting exercise, and I sort of map out the goals that I want. Take the V2 Mom that we do. That outlines what your goals are for the year and how you're going to accomplish those goals. Well, incorporate some personal side of things and say, okay, well then this is going to be my calendar. This is when things are going to be taking place. I'm going to document things on the calendar, and I'm going to start to just schedule in some social time with your friends. And it makes a huge difference when you schedule it in advance, as opposed to just never getting to it. And that can often be a problem. Cooking. Some people find cooking a real drain. And, there was a period of time when I found cooking was just becoming a little bit too much, because we were just, we weren't eating as well as we could be. And we just found that, it would be great if we had somebody cook for us. So what we did was we hired a personal chef. And this was a great solution. Now, it's not something that we do right now, but it is something that got us past this sort of hump that we were experiencing, where we just found that we just wanted really good quality food. The personal chef we hired actually was an organics focus, so they had an organic food was being put together, and honestly, it was great. Now they would show up every week. The meals would be put together. They would be put in, into the freezer. She would automatically just load the freezer for us, and so we would basically say, "What do we want to eat?" For the week, and we would take out things in advance of that. Now we gravitated away from that because I really have a joy of cooking, and so does my wife. So we've kind of now removed the friction of the cooking, because now we've got other ways of finding interesting recipes. So there's a cooking show that my wife watches religiously, and I come across in some of the reading and stuff that I do, I come across some interesting recipes, and there's a certain way that I like to eat, and so it's just simple, easy recipes, and we turn it into a bit of a fun time. So it doesn't always work, but it is kind of interesting. Other things with cooking, things like a crock pot. What a great great invention a crock pot is. You know, you put everything in, throw it in at the beginning, leave it all day long. When you get home, it's made for you. So, you know, a lot of the crock pot recipes that I like are the simple ones. I did an interesting lamb shank, and it was just very simple. You put it in, you pour you basically had all the canned goods, and you just poured all the tomatoes in and, bottle of wine and all that sort of stuff, and just left it for, however many hours. And you came back and you pulled it out, and it was excellent. So, that's something to take advantage of as well, is look for other cooking solutions. Cleaning, I don't need to talk too much about cleaning because it's a frustration and a friction for everybody. So, hire yourself a cleaning service. We don't, after we get to a certain point, it does make for a better life. And really, the saving of $100 or $200 or whatever it happens to be sometimes isn't worth it when you can have everything just clean for you. And if you can afford to do it, then I strongly recommend doing that. Working out, personally has always been a challenge, and it's always been a challenge for me because I'm so busy. My lifestyle is so crazy busy. So I just started doing some reading on this, and I thought, how can I get some more activity? Well, I make sure I take advantage of sports and activities that I like to do. I like to play hockey. I like to play tennis. I like to play. I like to do some downhill skiing. I like to do various types of skiing, water skiing. So I'm, quite active with a lot of that. Mountain biking. So what do I do? Well, I just basically then tie that into how to stay social with my friends and into some of the other working out. I figure I'm not going to then necessarily have workout time. I'm just going to have active time, and it kind of works out well in that I'm not working out, but I am working out. And so, just incorporating it that way, and that to me gives me much more enjoyment than actually going to a gym and sitting down and doing a treadmill and all that sort of stuff. It's just, that's mind numbing to me. And oftentimes I just wouldn't even get off the couch or get out there to do something. But if I had a date scheduled with a friend where we were going to go mountain biking or something like that, then taking advantage of that is, to me, it just sort of kills a bunch of birds with one stone. Not that that's a great metaphor, but anyways. What else? Servicing your car. That's always a challenging one because, in most cases, it's almost a day wasted to doing that. So I make sure that I find service companies, and we have one that is actually quite great, who basically, contacts me at the beginning of the season and says, listen, I've got your snow tires, want to get them put on your car for you, or they make notes on the system, and they've got a really organized system for following up with me. Whenever I go, I always book well in advance my servicing so I can get a courtesy car. And they have the courtesy car waiting for me, so it doesn't really interrupt my my day at all. If they have online access, or if they have Wi-Fi access, then sometimes I'll just go. Being remote like I am, I'm able to then reduce the friction of not getting work done by working in the dealership. So stuff like that has happened as well. Now it could be some little things, and these are some interesting little ones. And some people may laugh at this, but to me it was a small niggly little frustration and a point of friction. Have you ever tried peeling a banana? And I laugh at this when I say it, but the point is, ever tried peeling a banana? What's the one problem when you peel a banana? The problem is when you go and you grab that end of the banana and you try to break it off, oftentimes it doesn't break and it mushes the top of the banana. And honestly, I like bananas, but I found that it was a point of friction for me that every time I go to peel a banana, I'd then have to get a knife and I'd have to cut the top off and I'd have to then peel it. And it was just it just wasn't really enjoyable. Ultimately, when I got the banana, it was good, but I didn't like it. Well, then I found out that I'm peeling a banana wrong. Have you ever peeled a banana like a monkey? They don't do it that way. They do it a different way. So what I recommend you do is go online and Google how to peel a banana like a monkey. And you'll find that there's a different way of doing it. And it works flawlessly every time. I love my bananas now because I know how to do it where there's no friction involved in doing it. Making a cup of coffee. I've gone a couple different directions when it comes to coffee. Now, I've sort of started off where I'd have, the process of having a pot of coffee, but then I found that the pot of coffee was just going stale, and I like a good cup of coffee. So then I went and said, okay, I'm going to go complete convenience. And those new Keurig machines and the Tassimo machines and the Nespresso and all that sort of stuff, they're pretty expensive machines. So we bought ourselves a Keurig machine. And you know what? It actually worked out well. It was making a pretty decent cup of coffee, and it was very convenient. Now, the cost of coffee went way up. And it was interesting because coffee manufacturers have really found a way of taking something that was pretty much had a fixed price until Starbucks came along and really jacked up the price. But even still, they've taken it to the next level, and they're making it really now, they're taking much more of our dollars for a cup of coffee, and they're giving coffee in a more convenient way. Well, then I came across some other ways of grinding your own beans, and the grinders they've got now are really quite inexpensive, and they do a good job. And anybody who knows anything about coffee, if you can grind your beans just before you brew your cup, it just tastes so much better. Well, I actually went online and found a few different solutions, read some interesting books on it, and a good friend of mine showed me a machine that we use. It's a stovetop machine. We just grind the coffee, we put it in. It's very quick and easy to do it, but it makes such a rich, full-bodied cup of coffee, and I love it. I've also then come across another machine which you can travel with, and you can take it with you for 1-cup brews, and it's called the AeroPress, and it's fantastic. And in actual fact, the AeroPress, I found out, has actually won an award for brewing the world's best cup of coffee. So a lot goes into it. So it's become better for me now because now I'm enjoying my coffee even more. It's a little bit more involved in making the cup, but there's solutions in place that allow me to brew the just amount of beans that I need and the type of grind that I need that I can make it. And anyways, I'll put some links to the current machines that I'm using in the show notes because they are just making the coffee so much nicer. And it's coffee is a real cult. I'm finding out is that it's a big industry. And anyways, there's some pretty easy ways of getting a really, really good cup of coffee. And it's kind of fun too. Kind of turned making a cup of coffee from more of a vending machine type experience to more of a tea ritual type experience. So, or tea ceremony type experience. So anyways, I'll put some notes there and you can see what I'm currently using for the coffee that I'm making. Losing your keys or glasses. How oftentimes do you come home and you then can't find your keys? Well, we put a very simple solution. We have what's called a stuff box. So as soon as you walk in our house, right there is a hook for myself, a hook for my wife, and then a little box that all our wallets and stuff can go in. And that's our stuff box. And I know no matter what, you get into the habit, you come in, the first thing you do is you drop your keys in it. Your keys are always there when you go back for them. So shoveling snow, cutting grass, hiring that out, finding people that will do it. These little things can make a big difference in your lifestyle, and it's your life, and from what I understand, you only get one chance at this. So you may as well make it a good one. And, we're fortunate that we are in business. We are running our own practices, and we are fortunate that it allows us that bit of luxury to design things the way we want it. We aren't playing to anybody else's fiddle. We're simply doing it our way. So get clear on what it is that you want, and get clear on what friction is standing in your way from living that ideal life. And it's just start focusing on that and start building those processes into your business and into your lifestyle as well. So tell me, what are some of your frustrations? What are some of your frictions that you've put some solutions to? And they could be as ridiculous as how to peel a banana properly, and they could be as big as the metrics that you use, or maybe you have some different metrics that you use for tracking your business, for doing your business management. But I'm really interested to know what solutions you've put in place, or maybe you don't have solutions. Maybe you just have something that's bugging you. Maybe it's as simple as never having, good quality water. If you don't like the water in your office, then, are there solutions you can put in place? What are some of the cool solutions? And they don't even have to be really that cool. They could be just solutions in general. But what have you been doing? And I'd love to hear from you by just putting your comments in the show notes, just to explain what it is that you're doing to reduce some of the frictions and what awareness you've made on what some of the frictions are that you have in your business and in your life that you've solved or that you'd like to solve. And perhaps we can talk about it. So hopefully this episode is giving you some insight into ideally, you have the option of designing your life the way you want it. You have the option of designing your business the way you want it. And it all starts with understanding and being aware of what it is that you want. And at the end of the day, what it is that you want to be happy. And so focus on that. And so, that's what I ask of you is to take a step back, and hopefully just from this episode, you've got some thoughts running around your head to things that you can put in place that might make your life that much better. And as I say, if you can share those some of those comments in the show notes, then you can pass that wisdom on to somebody else. Anyways, everybody, have a great one. Thanks for your time today, and get out there and build yourself a better business.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed fee-based financial planning mastery academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.